In order to live, this man must die.
From what I hear, you can come out in a coma, never come back.
He's being frozen in a state of suspended animation.
Flatline, nothing.
So they kill you to cure you.
Knife, scissors.
But once this operation is over, can they bring him back? Watch Ed Bradley's Street Stories Thursday.
Saturday, it's a Disney celebration from France with Gloria Estefan, The Temptations, Cher, scenes from Beauty and the Beast, and more. The grand opening of Euro Disney, Saturday.
This is CBS.
Here are tonight's winning lottery numbers drawn earlier this evening. Now stay tuned for News 7.
This is about driving, so it's about your car. This is about loving to drive, so it's about choosing the right gasoline. This is about quality, so it's about Sunoco. This is about excitement, so it's about Ultra 94. This is about performance, so it's about advanced detergency in every grade. This is about wanting it all and getting it all. So like we said, this is about Sunoco.
Mom, tell the truth. Is everything all right?
Is this where we reverse roles?
Be serious. I mean, you won't have to sell the house or anything, will you?
Well, why would I do that?
Mom.
Look, when you were away at school, Dad met with Greg Hall down at Payne Weber.
Well, that was 10 years ago, though.
They set up this annuity just in case anything happened.
So you have enough?
More than enough every month.
How'd the Payne Weber guy know back then what Daddy wanted for you?
You asked.
Listen to this. Last month, I made a long-distance call from a payphone to the home office. The other day, I get a bill from some operator service company I've never even heard of for twice the AT&T price. Hey, what's going on here?
When you make a long-distance call and you don't hear AT&T after the... Hang up, dial 10-ATT-0, then the area code and number. You get the AT&T service you want and prices you expect.
You just gotta listen.
AT&T.
To keep your competitive edge, you can phone it there, fax it there, even beam it there. But there's nothing like being there. With US Air and the American Express card, you get a winning combination. The airline that begins with you and the card dedicated to providing unparalleled customer service. US Air and the American Express card. Keep your competitive edge.
From WHDH TV Boston, this is News 7 Late Edition. 4 dead in domestic violence in Lawrence. Tonight, a call for a public safety emergency. Good evening. Margie Reedy's off tonight. We'll have more on the Lawrence story in a moment. But first, Campaign 92, the New York primary. A solid win will all but assure Bill Clinton the Democratic nomination. Jerry Brown hopes to be the candidate who can stop the Arkansas governor. Complicating the Empire State Showdown tomorrow, a wild card named Paul Tsongas. News 7's Byron Barnett has a primary eve report.
We shall triumph because we are...
Tonight, Jerry Brown continued his Stop Bill Clinton guerrilla assault in New York.
Are we going to win here tomorrow?
And Bill Clinton was in Wisconsin trying to shore up his support for that state's primary tomorrow. Still, the delegate-rich Empire State, where Brown and Clinton have locked horns for 2 weeks, is tomorrow's most coveted prize.
What this election comes down to, and it may be what Bill Clinton's fate comes down to, is going to be the disposition of about 250,000 cranky New Yorkers who are going to get out of bed tomorrow and decide whether they're going to vote, and whether they're going to vote for somebody, whether they're going to vote against somebody, and the whole Democratic Party is holding its breath.
Thank you. But the New York contest is really a 2.5-man race, since Paul Tsongas raised expectations about his getting back in if enough New Yorkers vote for him. His supporters haven't given up. They've even taken to the airwaves.
2 active presidential candidates leave us with a troubling choice. One who changes his position with the polls, the other no one believes.
I think he's just waiting to see what happens in New York.
And suppose he does very well in New York, high in the double digits.
Well, then he'll look at how Bill Clinton did and how Jerry Brown does and see what implications that has for him.
So Clinton and Brown find themselves forced into firing more shots at a man whose campaign they thought they'd already sunk.
It's sort of the best of both worlds.
His message was heard and debated against ours in Michigan, Illinois, Texas, and Florida. And the voters decided they liked what we were saying better.
And I expect him to get a certain vote here in New York. And when you're in the face-to-face combat, you get a lot of scars. So if you can stand on the sideline, you increasingly look better as the other two candidates get closer to the 15th round.
So the high stakes of tomorrow's New York primary have put the Democratic presidential contest at another crossroads. A big win for Clinton could help give him nearly 2/3 of the delegates he needs for his party's nomination and substantially weaken Jerry Brown's standing as a contender. However, a win or a close finish for Jerry Brown would not only keep his candidacy very much alive, it would also invite Paul Tsongas back into the race. RD?
Are Tsongas supporters putting any figure on tomorrow's returns?
Well, they're not talking about this publicly, of course, but privately, the thinking is that if Paul Tsongas can get over 20% of the vote, or at least 20% of the vote, and if Bill Clinton gets less than half the vote, then they might really be seriously talking about him getting back into the race.
All right, thank you, Byron Barnett. Now, in addition to New York, there's also balloting tomorrow in Kansas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. News 7 will have full coverage of tomorrow's results, including live updates from New York. First weather now. Harvey Leonard's up in the Weather Center with a look at what Tuesday morning has in store for us. Harvey?
All right, RD, good evening to everybody, and it's going to be a pretty good day, I got to tell you that. It'll start out in Boston with a fair amount of sun, some high, thin clouds, about 40 degrees, 7 or 8 in the morning. In the outlying areas, it will be a little bit colder than that, but I do want to tell you there will not be a whole lot of wind in the morning, so we won't really feel any colder than those readings, right around the freezing mark in the suburbs, but again, a fair amount of sun, some high, thin clouds. However, once the sun comes up tomorrow, temperatures will rise swiftly, and by noontime and during the afternoon, it'll be in the 50s, a few spots may even touch 60 degrees, in spite of the fact that clouds will gradually be on the increase during the day. And again, the wind will not be a big factor for tomorrow. Well, at least one round ball season is over.
You've noticed that the college basketball season has finally come to a close. Yes, chances are you already know by now that Duke is the national champion of collegiate basketball. Their 71-51 win over Michigan makes the Blue Devils the first team since UCLA in 1973 to repeat a national championship. This was also opening day in baseball in 9 different parks, including the brand new Camden Yards in Baltimore, where President George Bush threw out the first ball, but not too well. The Orioles did better, beating the Indians 2-0. And word comes tonight that the National Hockey League owners will present a brand new proposal to the players tomorrow morning in New York. Both sides are assembling there in anticipation of ending the strike that will be a week old tomorrow. Coming up in sports, we'll hear from President John Ziegler. I'll show you all the Duke-Michigan highlights. Plus, you'll see Toronto already cashing in on 2 new Blue Jays in Jack Morris and Dave Winfield. See you shortly, RD.
Thank you, John. See you in a few minutes. A call tonight for a public safety emergency in Massachusetts. That following the deaths of 4 people over the weekend in domestic violence in Lawrence. Police say 29-year-old Juan Torres killed his estranged common-law wife, Delfina de Leon, and 2 family friends before turning the gun on himself. Torres had been charged 3 times with assaulting de Leon or violating a restraining order, but he was set free by a judge just a week before the killings. In Lawrence District Court today, women lined up to get so-called 209A orders, but at least one woman who spoke to News 7's Mark Weil says she knows there are no guarantees of protection.
Have you ever had a restraining order before?
Yes.
Do they work?
Not really.
Why?
Because the men are afraid of restraining orders. They just think they're just a piece of paper.
The Lawrence killings have renewed calls for tougher laws on domestic violence. The Weld administration says bail reform is part of the answer. It wants judges to be able to consider the danger a defendant poses to others and the community before being released pending trial. The governor says the likelihood of jumping bail should not be the only factor.
The current system is absolutely cockeyed in not taking into account the dangerousness of an individual to the community.
An emergency meeting is scheduled tomorrow afternoon between Lieutenant Governor Cellucci and the Women's Legislative Caucus. On the agenda, how to toughen domestic violence laws and get more money to help battered women. 2 shootings tonight in Roxbury, apparently related. 2 young men shot in what witnesses say were drive-by attacks in which the suspects were riding a moped. The first victim, 16-year-old Charles Jacobs, was wounded as he stood on Homestead Street. The second victim is identified as Frank Dixon, age unknown. He was shot in the chest as he stood on Humboldt Avenue. That attack occurred a few minutes after Jacobs was shot. Both men are expected to survive. No arrests in either attack. It was an 8-1 vote tonight in Somerville. At issue, making awareness about AIDS part of the school curriculum. Victoria Block reports to many parents, it's an issue of survival.
Yes. 8 yeas, 1 nay, the motion carries.
The motion approved by the Somerville School Committee means condoms will be available in school and classes on HIV/AIDS will be part of the curriculum for students in grades K through 12.
I think it's certainly a national health issue, and all children ought to be given information about it.
Grades K through 4 would learn general information about viruses, hygiene, and health. The older the student, the more specific the information. Before any student participates, parents would have to sign a consent form. Robert Lydon has 7 grandchildren in the system, and he's dead set against it.
How many people in the school committee really understand the ramifications of sex education? It's a mistake.
But not to Roseanne Hutchins. She has a 12-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son, and says they need to know about HIV/AIDS.
I'm all for it. As I said, it's a matter of life and death now. If there's any way we can prevent it, I think we should, or at least educate.
What kind of questions do you have?
What is it? How do you get it? Can you get it from somebody who has them?
The Somerville School Department made it clear that aside from making condoms available to high schoolers and implementing an HIV/AIDS curriculum, sexual abstinence will be promoted as the only sure way to avoid contracting the deadly disease. In Somerville, Victoria Block, News 7.
Starting Tuesday afternoon, condoms will be available at the after-school clinic. The curriculum is expected to be implemented within the next couple of weeks. Isaac Asimov, well known for his contributions to the world of science writing, is dead. He was 72. Asimov, a writer of both science fact and fiction, published at least 10 titles a year. Among the nearly 500 books he wrote, 3 science fiction novels known as the Foundation Trilogy that won him the Special Hugo Award in 1966. Asimov's contributions to works of science fact gave his readers a clear understanding of even the most complicated scientific data. Those who knew him well say, although he spent much of his life studying and teaching biochemistry, writing was always his first love.
Isaac Asimov was interested in sitting at those 5 or 6 electric typewriters in his study and working day after day. You could not get him to take a vacation or to go out. He wished to write. He was compulsively driven to produce the word on the page.
The most comprehensive collection of Asimov's works is now housed at Boston University. Boris Yeltsin will be on the spot Tuesday. That's when he's to explain his economic reforms to the Russian Congress. It's the first meeting of the Congress since the Soviet Union was dissolved last December. Yeltsin's opponents want to limit the Russian president's power. In Australia, Iranian dissidents went on a rampage attacking the Iranian embassy in Canberra. Several diplomats were injured. The dissidents were protesting an Iranian air raid on Iranian rebel bases in Iraq. The dissidents say the Iranian government attacked the base in a show of force to win support for the regime. All 3 sides, Iran, Iraq, and the dissidents, have taken the dispute to the United Nations. Still ahead on our late edition of News 7 tonight, the state took a gamble and won. The lottery celebrates 20 years in business. Also coming up.
It is Live Music Week here at WERS. I'm Sarah Edwards here at the Emerson College radio station, and we'll find out why this place provides a unique learning experience for those who want to work in the radio business.
The hard way of stripping wallpaper versus the Black & Decker Steamworks. Steamworks is so much faster and easier, it's a wonder people still mess with anything else. Steamworks from Black & Decker.
Most radio stations are too loud at work.
With others, the whole office would be asleep by 10:30.
But there's one station everybody at work can agree on.
Magic.
Magic 106.7. We listen all day.
Magic's great while you work because they play continuous soft rock with hardly any talk.
It's a perfect blend. Carly Simon, Michael Bolton,
Phil Collins, The Supreme.
Magic 106.7 WNJX.
No hard rock. No boring elevator music.
Try Magic at work.
Today in Music History, brought to you by Alka-Seltzer.